How are you? You can't answer, but we're stressed. Well, I'm stressed. How are you, Julie?
We are back. Here we are. We survived year 3 of uni. We handed in our dissos. We're alive. I was about to say alive and thriving, but I'm not sure if that's correct.
Well, you're thriving. You're doing good.
We applied for a master's. We sent in our portfolios. No updates yet.
No updates yet. I haven't received anything. So we'll see how that goes.
Currently, I'm sitting in a room with loads of boxes because I'm moving literally tomorrow, and Shania is.
I'm in a hotel, and not for good reasons. I had to get evacuated from my house. Again, it happened 4 years ago because the water flooded my electrics, and when that happens, it could potentially blow up. So they evacuated us. Yay. I've been here for a week and a half, and I'm going to be here for another week. So, gang.
So
shit.
that's our situation currently. I'm sorry for no updates for weeks and weeks, but we were a bit stressed.
Yeah. Let's start from the beginning. So I turned 21. That week was great. We all celebrated, and then I had my dissertation due. Finally, we both submitted our dissertations, and then this happened to me. Yeah, this is where we've been in life. And Julie moved, so
I'm moving tomorrow, not yet.
moving. You moving tomorrow?
Yeah.
Ah, cuteness.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
So, what we guys wanted to do for today was talk about women in the film industry, women in film, like the female gender in and around the film, cinema, TV industry, just because Shania and I both kind of did something in that topic for our dissertations.
A little bit of literature as well.
Yeah, I did a bit of literature as well. Yeah.
Me too. I touched on a bit. Caroline made me, so that's great. So, but yeah, do you want to explain what your dissertation was about briefly, and then we'll get into why it's different?
Trigger warning for people that did their dissertation this year. We're gonna say dissertation a lot of times. We don't want to trigger anyone. It was a stressful year. We all had panic attacks throughout. Let's not lie.
Literally. So fair warning, because this is all the podcast is about.
So mine was about female representation in film and literature, but specifically Greek mythical women. And I based my main examples on Percy Jackson, since that's movies and books. But then I also went further with so it was about Medusa, Persephone, and Circe, and those three have been represented in other books and other films, and I just analyzed that a bit, how that changed throughout the times, or how it differs from literary representation and cinematic representation, because sometimes it was really different, and some of them were really sexist.
Why did you say it like that? Just say how it is. Say it with your chest.
Yeah.
That was sexist as hell.
Do you want to give a little summary of yours?
So I did mine on how Black women are negatively or positively represented in film and television, specifically contemporary Western film and television, because I wanted to talk about Britain and America specifically, but I ended up talking about a lot of United States stuff, because a lot of the archaic stereotypes that are attached to Black women are from the US and slavery.
Yeah.
But I applied, I think, just like a few examples to British television. So I touched on the angry Black woman, so the sapphire trope, which also led into the mammy, because I spoke about Medea, for all the Black people out there, because I know all the Black people watch Tyler Perry films, and he basically cross-dresses as this like a matriarch of a black woman in the family, and he's like ridiculous about it, but we'll get into that. And then my chapter 2 was on the awkward black girl, and that touched on the show Insecure and chewing gum.
Mm-hmm.
And then my final chapter was the powerful superwoman black woman, like but I mostly spoke about black femininity and how it differs from Eurocentric femininity,
Mm-hmm.
and how that applied to the powerful black woman.
Like, yeah. I think maybe what we should do is like interview each other a bit about our dissos. Maybe that would be a good idea. So, let me ask you, like, just what was your, I don't know, most surprising point, or like, what is the most important kind of message you would want to get out there after you researched so much about this and written your disso and stuff?
Oh, a great question. I think my favorite chapter was my chapter 2, because I feel like I just connected to it more. Like it made me research about what blackness is, and black authenticity and transparency of how black women represent themselves or choose to represent themselves, especially now.
Yeah.
So like the awkward black girl is a trope that isn't archaic, it's relatively new, it's something that's just established.
I was about to say it's not something when you said awkward black girl, I just thought of chewing gum, because that's the only one that like popped into my head.
Yeah.
I was about to say it's not that common, I would say, or people wouldn't know it that much. Not as mainstream.
Yeah, but it's happening quite often now than it was before. Like I think because of Issa Rae with Insecure, and she did a mini series as well. She kind of just established the trope and made it popular more.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, researching that was interesting, because it was like finding out how people define blackness and how black women define themselves.
Yeah.
So she was saying how like it's elusive. You can't really put blackness in a box, and then like the consequences of trying to define blackness is more damaging than it is positive, because you don't define whiteness, you don't define any other race. You can be anything when you're white, but with black you have to be a certain thing, and it's like you either are this thing or you're not. So I think that was the most like
I also think
point.
it's like good for like young black women to see that, because your third chapter touches on this, but I think loads of times on TV black women are represented as strong and like not necessarily unemotional, but you mean like, but not like, I'm not sure how to explain, like not sensitive, like always strong, always like, oh, I can handle it, like I can take it. And I think this awkward teenage persona is good for people to see, oh, I can be like any other teenage role on TV, like, teenagers are awkward, let's black young women also be awkward.
Be awkward, be not like confined to the tropes that are presented to you, because both characters don't. Like with chewing gum, she's so ridiculous that it's kind of like a laugh at the stereotypes given to black women. Like she's made to look unattractive on purpose. Like her exaggeration on how unattractive she is like, well, black girls don't look like that. Like that's not real life. Like that's what I feel like chewing gum did. It was more like I'm gonna make the most ridiculous stereotypes, make it awkward, and show how dumb they are, and then show like this is not how black girls actually are. This is just such a caricature that people perceive all the time, but it's not how it actually is. And like Insecure, she's not a teenager. She's a woman. She's a grown woman, but she's trying to find her settling in life, and it's just interesting to see how she navigates it, because she's not, like you said, she's not strong. She's not. She doesn't have all these qualities that a black woman is stereotypically possesses. She's trying to fit into other black people, but also stray away from that. So like she's the only black person in her workplace. She's trying to not feed into their stereotypes. But also she's not that stereotype anyway. So it's like how does she find the balance? It just was interesting. I really enjoyed that chapter. I feel like it was just
It's
my
also
best one.
something new, something that also we hadn't discussed yet, I think, in the course, because in our 3 years of film studies, I think you discuss stereotypes more. So like the strong black woman, we've discussed a lot. What's your first chapter about again? Like
The angry black woman.
Yeah, exactly. That's we discussed a lot. I had in my dissertation something I think that connects a little bit with yours. In the first Percy Jackson film, Persephone is played by, I want to say Latina, like she's like dark skinned but not black. Like
yeah.
So I want to say she's Latina. I'm not sure where she's from, and she's like, I think she's really presented as this exotic kind of beauty, you know.
Yeah.
Just as like sexy, like pure
The
sexiness. She's
Jezebel
very
type.
promiscuous and, you know, like.
Yeah.
So I think that also happens a lot with the female body in general, but often with the black female body.
Yeah.
Did you touch on that in your dissertation?
So I did I did it a little bit in chapter 2. So I tried to embed like themes throughout, and like because they all kind of intertwine anyway.
Yeah.
So it was like with chewing gum, Tracy is fetishized. I can't say the word.
Fetishized? Yeah.
Fetishized, yeah. by by black men because she's so like Afrocentric, like her features. She's a Nigerian woman. She's got strong features anyway as it is. So like they like comedically play into that, and he basically make one of the guys that she finds attractive, or no, he finds her attractive. So all the men that she attracts anyway, her first boyfriend was a secret gay guy, but he was so Christian, he couldn't be himself. And because she played into like boyish features, that's why he was with her. The second guy, he's stupid. So it was kind of like, well, he's stupid, she's silly. They kind of go together. But this third guy, he's a very attractive man. He's rich. He's got everything, but he makes her dress up in this tribal African clothes and calls her the N-word, and like that's how she's fetishized. But other than that, I touched on it in my third chapter with black femininity, because white femininity is classed as pure. Like you wouldn't expect a lot of like just overt and objective sexualness coming from white women, unlike black women. And then that led into the Jezebel trope, where it's like they're used for their body, but they also try to like manipulate and just try to seduce white men.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And like that's what happened in slavery. When white men would rape black women, they would say, oh, it was they seduced me, or they like got onto me, because I'm just saying this in a very contemporary way. But it was interesting because the shows I picked was Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder, and both women are with white men.
Yeah, the How to Get Away with Murder, I think. So the cast is the younger ones, obviously Viola Davis is in it, but like, Viola Davis is with a white man, and then she has an affair with a black man. It's very
but
complicated.
She was the mistress with her husband, so it was like she already played into that trope of being the Jezebel, like she seduced the man immorally. It's all about being immoral and promiscuous.
Yeah.
So it's like, why is that just attached to the black woman, and why is that part of black femininity? But then I flipped it and said that sexual liberation is actually a positive, and seeing black women in a sexual way is a positive thing, because it's normally black women are characterized as ugly. So to see that black women are being seeked after by these white men in a non-fetishized way is a good thing.
I think there's like a thin line that television and film have to be careful about, that it's like you portray them as something beautiful that people want to be with, and not as a fetish that they just see them as their fetish. Like it's very I think it can be problematic very quick, so you have to be a skilled
Yeah.
writer or director or
Yeah. So
cinematographer.
one of yours is about a promiscuous woman. What character was that?
Persephone. So she's Hades' wife.
Hmm.
But so with my thing was like, so obviously Greek myths are old, like ancient, like literally.
Yeah.
So the like when I say the original, I'm just gonna say the Greek myth. You will never know which one was the first written down one because it's like fairy tales, like
Yeah.
you know. Anyway, in the original,
Mhm.
she was picking flowers off a field, and Hades just saw her and was like, "Let me get me a piece of that," and just kidnapped her and took her to hell with him. And so, first of all, non-consensual, okay.
Yeah.
And then he basically, the story goes that they are getting married, but you know how it was like in the past it was like if you didn't have sex, then you didn't what do you call it, like finish the marriage, like it's
Yeah.
only official if you had sex after.
It's what's it called? Consummation.
Yeah,
Blah, 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 blah. I think that's the word. I feel like
yeah,
I
I
saw
think
I
so
saw
too.
that word.
And so in the myth it's like he she wants to, like, her mother is the goddess of the crop and that flowers grow, and because her literal daughter was stolen, she's so sad that she doesn't make anything grow anymore. She's like, fuck everything, fuck everyone.
Yeah.
And then Zeus, which is Hades' brother, he goes, Hades, you need to let her go. Like literally nothing's growing. People are dying. Like so he lets her, they make like a little pact.
Yeah.
Well no, he lets her go. But before she goes, he gives her pomegranate to eat. And
Okay.
the seed of the pomegranate is like a metaphor for,
Semen?
yeah, the seed of a
Yeah.
man. Um,
How does that
so
even work? I feel
I
like
don't know.
it's like
Anyway,
that.
so she eats the pomegranate, and that means they consummated the marriage, and that means she has to stay with him in the underworld.
Yeah.
But they make a pact then that she goes 6 months above ground and 6 months with him. So 6 months with the mom, 6 months with him, and that's how the season started basically. So
Okay.
when she's there, it's summer, but then when she has to, so the mom is like, "Oh, you have to leave soon," so she's getting more sad. So then it's fall, and then winter when she's on the ground because the mom is sad, and then spring because the mom gets excited because her daughter is going to be back soon, like something, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how the ancient Greeks explained the seasons, which is kind of cool.
Interesting. Yeah.
Anyway, so she already is a kidnapped victim that got forced to live there with her husband. And you know how in the Greek myths they're all related to each other, so it's all a bit tricky.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she is basically there against her will, kind of, but some people say Hades and Persephone after that had a really good marriage because he's not like other gods that just goes to fuck everyone. Like Zeus fucks everyone and anything, even though he's married technically as well. So it's like
Yeah,
at
but the
least
way
he's loyal. That's what people say.
the way
But
they
she,
represent Zeus is actually quite sexy, so I don't mind.
oh my
I don't
god,
mind
he
that.
literally fucked a cow, please.
He fucked a cow.
Well, he made himself into a bull and then fucked. No, he
Oh,
made
okay.
himself a bull, and then the girl was like, "Oh my god, that bull is so damn hot," and they fucked. So he fucked a girl as a bull. That's how
Oh
the
my
story goes.
god. So just bestiality. Wow. This
Yeah,
Greek mythology is actually just intense. That is mad.
and so yeah, she's kind of against her. Like apparently after that, she liked being there because she had power and she was separate. Like she had more independence because before she was with her mom, and she was just kind of the the goddess, the little goddess next to the big goddess that her mom was. So like. And now she's like the ruler of the underworld with her husband. And some people say that in a positive way, but I'm just like, she literally got kidnapped. I don't know about that. So
She got kidnapped and technically raped because
so
everything
then
was against her will. That's mad.
in the Percy Jackson book, she's not there because he goes in summer, and in summer she's with her mom. So basically Percy is just like, so the whole book is his monologue, basically, like from his perspective.
Okay.
And he's basically like, oh, I wish Persephone was here because Hades is calmer when she's here. That would make my life easier. So basically, he doesn't like. It's just like, oh, I wish she was here because she would be useful. Already, like, great, amazing.
Yeah.
And
Um, okay, go on. Sorry, go on.
sorry, but in the book, she doesn't appear more than that. So in the film, however, I was like,
Mm.
first of all, why is she? So the film is supposedly a direct adaptation, but everyone really that read the books hates the films because they really did a poor job.
As they do with book adaptations, but that's another topic for another day.
Exactly. That's really another topic for another day. Oh my god. Write that down. So in the film, I'm like, why is she even in the film? Because it's also summer in the film. Like they kept the same. So she's supposedly not in the underworld. So Percy goes down, and you can tell she's in this like tight dress that like accentuates her boobs and her curves, and it's like, okay, we get it, like, and she like kind of walks already like in a sensual way, you from the first moment you're like, okay, I get what's happening here, like
Yeah.
we have a sexy woman, like I understand, like, so I was like, did she just get introduced for the male gaze so we have something to look at, like,
Why do you think she was introduced more in the film than the book? Because you said she didn't have a presence in the book. So what was her purpose in the
I
film?
think maybe they just thought Hades alone wasn't interesting enough and they just wanted to put another element into the underworld. And she is, in reality, she is a part of the underworld. She's just not in summer. So maybe they just
Mm.
wanted to show more like different elements. But what they show of her, it's like you could have just. So basically, why she is important to the plot is because she is so sick of her husband. Like she kind of hates him. She
Okay.
loves the power she has in the underworld, but she low-key hates him.
Okay.
And so when Percy tries to bargain with Hades, like, because basically Percy's mom is in the underworld, and he goes to the underworld to get his mom out, and he's like, oh, maybe I can just talk it out with Hades. But Hades is literally the ruler of the underworld, so he's not like,
Yeah.
he's not just gonna be like, okay, here you go.
Yeah.
Basically, how they escape is that she is so sick of him, Persephone, that she strikes Hades and he gets knocked out. And then she's like, oh, you can escape, because she's actually nice,
Yeah.
because well, yeah, she's there against her will. That's how they portray her. So in
Yeah.
a sense, she's important to the plot because that's how how they escape. But everything before that is just her being promiscuous and hating her husband and making advances on teenagers, even though she's like like.
She's
So there's
only.
this, yeah, Percy Jackson's friend is like a black young man, and
Yeah.
she kind of flirts with him the whole time, and she's like, oh, you can escape, but I'll keep him here for, like, basically
For my
like,
fun.
yeah. And then he comes back later from the underworld, and he's a satyr,
Mhm.
which is half goat half man, and he comes back with his horns, and that means you reached maturity as a satyr when your horns grow out. So basically, they're saying his little
Oh God.
session with Persephone made him
Oh
into
my
a man.
God. Ew.
Like,
That's
was this really needed in a teenage
in a teenage
film?
film. That's like so suggestive, but most of them are. But what you're saying to me is, right, the film and the book, which is male centered, introduce these female characters just for promiscuity, like just for like sexual. I can't even say the word.
It's like,
Just
yeah,
just to objectify them, basically.
it feels like for the male or whatever, the pleasure of the eye, like to have someone nice to look at. Do you know what I mean? Because the
Mm,
rest of the film, well, first of all, they're all attractive people because it's a Hollywood film.
yeah,
And they're all like, all the gods, of course, gods you have to kind of portray as attractive. I think that's the idea behind it, right? Like that
yeah.
all gods are super hot and whatever.
But like for YA books and film, YA young adults, for those who don't know, um, isn't that like more female targeted? Like I feel like a lot of people who read YA stuff is just or watch YA stuff was female.
I
Like
don't know. I'm just like, maybe they thought, so this is a theme I saw in the first film. Like there was Persephone, which I just explained, and then there was Medusa. In the book, Medusa is first, so she's the lady with the snake hair for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah.
But I think Medusa is the most famous one that I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
So in the book, she disguises herself as an old, sweet lady. So they trust her because she's like old and fragile and sweet. And then later she like transforms herself into how we know her with like snake hair and stuff. But yeah, so you're like, oh, okay, they trust her because like, so they go into the shop and they're like, oh, it's just an old, sweet lady that wants to help us, blah, blah, blah. So that's how they fall into a trap. In the film, they go into the same, it's like a garden shop she has with statues, because remember Medusa like can transform people into stone.
Yeah.
So she has a statue shop, but you know, it's just real people, no statues. So they go in, and first there's like no one, and they're like, why is everything closed, and blah blah, blah. And then suddenly like Uma Thurman appears, also in a black tight leather outfit, like not as revealing as the Persephone one, but it's still like tight and like accentuating everything.
Yeah.
And it's Uma Thurman. So like okay, maybe you don't find her attractive, but we can say like objectively she's like a nice looking woman, like and like skinny, and you know, and like she's not in her 20s, but she's still like young.
Yeah.
And it's not an old fragile lady, basically.
Yeah.
So another thing, like, why did we do that instead? Like,
instead of having the old lady like in the book, like
Yeah.
it was, they just really tried to exploit the female body as much as possible.
I think it was just maybe they thought it would make it more marketable. Maybe they thought, oh, this is how we're gonna get more young boys to watch it because it's attractive women in it. I'm not sure. They also aged up everyone. So in the first book, actually, characters are 12 or 11, and in this one they're like 16.
It is to make it more sexy, or for it to be legal to be more sexy.
Yeah,
like,
I guess so.
Because they're feeding into like hormones, teenage hormones.
Yeah, I'm guessing so. And then Medusa as well, because she's like, okay, she has snakes on her head, but the whole thing is like in the book she's more described as a monster, like hissing sounds like a snake, like in a scary way. And in the movie she's like talking like elongating her asses, but like in a sexy way. So she's like, ooh, like this, you know, and like with a 16-year-old boy, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? So she's a bit like sensual, a bit like, you know, like
yeah.
And so in the original myth, she gets, well, one of the versions. There's two versions of her what do you say, origin story. Yeah. So in one of them, she literally gets raped by Poseidon. So Poseidon is Percy Jackson's dad in the story. She gets raped by him, and then Aphrodite is so jealous. No, Athena. Sorry, I always mix them up. Athena is like, you committed like or you had sex in my temple, even though she was raped. This girl was raped, and she's like, you had sex in my temple, I'm condemning you for it. And then she gets the snake hair from that.
Oh my god, why do in these things, like to do with women, right, they condemn them for being victims?
Yeah, I know, but this is an ancient story, so I was like, okay, this was written in like I don't know when, so I'll let it slide for now. But then in the film, instead of being like, oh, your dad was rude to me, that's why I'm angry at you or whatever, like literally raped me. I know they couldn't, like, they wouldn't say in a YA film like he raped me. I know that's a bit much, but like they could have been like, he was a dick to me or whatever, or
like he
broke my heart, or no, literally they're like, oh, I used to date your dad, and it's like, no,
it's not how it worked.
So I wrote in my dissertation, I was like, they glossed over the fact, they said they were dating, but that's glossing over the fact that this woman in the original story was raped. So why are we doing that? Just to make her more sexy? I don't know. I was like, this, I can't.
That's weird. I'm trying to because it's like, if you can be so sexually elusive, then why can't you just say like, he forced me? Like, not the word rape, but like, oh, I had a bad encounter with your dad, and it could have been suggestive, but you want to be so explicit with it.
It's a Hollywood YA film. I think they just wanted to make everything like kind of sexy in an okay way, and like,
I
don't know. I was like, okay.
Because like with Medusa, similar to my first chapter,
Yeah.
because like men write in the female perspective and
Yeah.
like thinking that's okay. Like Tyler Perry wrote The Angry Black Woman. Like
Yeah.
the film is The Diary of the Mad Black Woman. And it's like he contradicts himself so much. He tries to make it seem like it's okay for black women to be mad and angry because they have a reason to.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to explore the reasons for it, but then also critiques them for being mad. Like this woman was literally dragged outside of her house. Her husband brought another woman home who he has kids for, but didn't want to give her kids.
Wow.
And just like it moves all her stuff out without notice or anything. She comes home, sees there's new dresses. She's like, oh my God, like he remembered our anniversary, puts on one of the dresses, and he's like, what are you wearing? That's not for you. That's for my next woman who walks in the house with him. And she's like, no, we can make this work. We've been together for 18 years. And he just drags her out the house. So the guy who was the moving guy saw that she was dragged outside the house and offered to take her to anywhere she wants to go. And she was like, cool. And then he was talking to her and she was just snappy. Like she's pissed off. She's upset.
Yeah, of course.
Like,
She's pissed off.
like her husband dashed her outside the house. Like, what else do you expect? And he was like, oh, no wonder your husband left you. I was like, huh? What the hell? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? And then even more than that, it's like throughout, it was like, oh, this is why you're bitter. This is why this is that. But it's like, so you're telling black women they can't be upset, but also telling them they can be upset. Like you're introducing intersectional themes. So like the husband is intersectionality is when you're faced with multiple oppressions. So her husband is oppressing her as a man, and then she's affected by this white woman who came and stole her husband. So it's like the white woman is superior, and that's why she was able to take her husband. So she's faced by like multiple oppressions. Plus she went from a high class being with her husband to now going back to the ghetto. So she's affected by classism as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, bro, you're telling us that it's cool that she's affected by all of this. Cool, a black woman's voices can be heard. Sorry, my voice is going. It's cool that black women's voices can be heard, but also, don't be too dramatic about it because you're just a bit like you're just a bit bitter. And then he like tries to brush it all over with like a Christian perspective, and it's like, oh,
not this.
Yeah, no, like, oh, it will get better. Like you're a better person. Like you'll be all right. And that you'll find another man. But the point is, another man oppressed her entire life.
Yeah.
And marriage is the institution of oppression for women. So it's like, why would she do that? Why would she go back? So
I think that's what I saw in my dissertation as well, that the books, even though the books were also written by a man, but he in his interviews and whatever he posts, he always talks about how representation is important to him. So I low-key trust this man. But I was talking about how in the film industry, because it's so, that's one of the points I made at the end, because it's so male oriented, male there's like, I know 80% is like, I don't have a real statistic, but like so many men in the executive positions, like the ones that make the choices. Or directors, producers, those kinds.
I think it's higher than 80%, you know.
Yeah, but like I'm just saying, I always say to people, like, tell me one director you know that's female, and they can never tell me one. And then I'm like, exactly. So
exactly, this is the point that we're trying to make.
Yeah. So that's the point I made. It was like, these women are represented in these films, or maybe some kind of women are not represented in film because these men in the executive positions make the choices. For me, I think that was what your problem was as well. It's like, oh, we're gonna show that women can be angry, but at the same time, we're also gonna show that it's kind of annoying us.
Exactly. Like it's like what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something. It's like, oh, I'm trying to be inclusive, but you can't be inclusive with your narrative. You're just gonna be inclusive in my story. And yeah, I witness your issues, but I'm gonna briefly mention them and then not actually address them
Yeah,
or
I'm gonna
resolve
show
them.
you. I'm gonna show the world the issues that you have, but I'm also gonna show them how it's affecting me, the man.
Yeah, me the
Yeah,
man. And
yeah,
it's like with Medusa, it's like she's a victim and then she's given something as a representation of her sex, like her sexuality being
yeah.
exploited. Like how do
Literally a
you
rape
put
victim, but made sensual for, I don't
for
know, for the
no
pleasure of the
reason?
male audience.
And
Fun.
like I was when I read your dissertation, you know, like with the snake symbolism, how it
Yeah,
goes back to like Adam and Eve and like
yeah,
the temptress of the snake.
yeah,
You're telling me that this woman who was raped is now a temptress. Like
yeah,
she's literally got snakes on her head to represent her being a sexual temptress, even though she was raped. Like make it
yeah.
make sense.
It's just very problematic. And I get that this is from ancient, like, I get the ancient story. It's like, okay, they can't look at women the way we look now. Like, it's been, even though some of ancient society was better in equality between men and women than we have it now in certain countries. But
I think so.
I'm just saying, I can look over it. It's been like, I don't know how many years, you know? But the
Yeah.
fact that we still, when I analyze these movies and it's still a problem, it's like so exhausting.
Mm.
Hopefully, I wrote in my dissertation that I hope it gets better now since the whole Me Too thing. But
Yeah.
one can only hope. But what I wrote as well for me, Cersei is the character that's in the book that's very man hating. And it was very interesting to see that a man hating character did not appear on the film screen
Yeah.
in an industry that's very male controlled.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to see that they would not put the character in that was hating on them.
Because they don't want to be represented as bad. With like it's funny you say that because the first film as well, the character who's male hating
Yeah,
is a man dressed as a woman. Like there's
yeah,
no actual female who
yeah,
is a male hating. He represents himself as male hating. It's kind of like self-hatred almost, but also he does it in such a ridiculous way that it kind of like is like, oh, that's ridiculous, men aren't like that, this woman's just being an angry black woman. So it's
yeah.
like that's mad. But I was gonna ask you, which character do you think you identify more with?
Mm, I need to think. I do. Can I say Cersei, but the Cersei that's in not in Percy Jackson?
What's the
So
difference? Explain.
the Cersei that we see in Percy Jackson is kind of angry at men, and I do get that, but she takes it a bit too far. She just wants women in the world, and she wants men to be transformed into pigs. Like she's sick of it,
Oh,
all the
nice.
men. So
Yeah.
there's a bit too much for me, like um, but Madeline Miller,
Mm,
one of my favorite authors. She wrote Song of Achilles, I highly recommend, and she wrote Cersei,
mm-hmm.
a book, and that places her in as the main character, and we see everything from her perspective, which has never been done before, because Cersei's always a small part in the story from Odysseus. Um, I'm
Okay.
sure some people will know what that is. So
I've
the
heard.
Odyssey, like that long trip Odysseus takes when he comes back from the Trojan War.
Okay.
So she's always just a small part there, and it's always usually from from the hero's kind of point of view. But
Mm-hmm.
this book is just about her and her story, and she's very relatable. She's very real. Like, you understand her emotions, her feelings. You get why she is a bit afraid of men because of trauma, and she's a bit closed off
Apprehensive.
because of her trauma. And it's
Yeah.
like, wow, I stand having a book written where we're not judging just a woman, but we're actually explaining
What
her.
you
Yeah,
heard, yeah, her experiences and why she behaves in the way she behaves.
Yeah, and that book is getting turned into a series by HBO Max, so I stan HBO.
Oh, we love HBO. Do you know
Yeah,
what? They do the best job of depicting women or allowing women to be in the
yeah.
narrative.
I think they're one of the best right now for sure.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's cool. I feel like that as well. I feel like with Persephone, can't relate. And Medusa, I don't know. I've never been like, maybe I have been sexually objectified, but I've never been raped. God willing and God forbid.
We
But
also can't turn people into stone, but maybe sometimes you
that
wish you
maybe
could.
sometimes, maybe with like us golds
Mm.
we can, but like it's just I don't have that identification where I can like relate to that
Yeah.
trauma. But yeah, so maybe Cersei as well.
Yeah, she's just very. I am excited for her to get her own series. I think the character, no one knew it. Like, everyone knew Medusa because I think that's like one of the most
Mm,
famous characters
yeah,
from Greek mythology. Persephone, some knew, like some that were like that had seen Percy Jackson or that were just a bit interested in myths. And
yeah.
Cersei, no one knew. But I think she's like super interesting, so I'm excited for her to get a series.
I didn't even know Cersei like
Yeah.
until I read it. So it was like
No, she's
through your
literally.
dissertation.
I can tell you why, because she's a witch that is all powerful and that goes against men. So of course she's not been in anything. Like,
Yeah,
of course.
but I didn't know Persephone either. To be
Yeah.
honest, too tough. Because
But also,
I think
it's
I've
the
only
wife
seen.
of, or it's the daughter of. Persephone was always like, you know, tied to
Yeah,
someone. She's not her own
she's not
person.
like her main
Yeah.
thing. But it's funny that the most sexual one is the one that everybody knows. Like the most the most sexual one and creepy
Well, I read in the
woman.
70s, I want to say, or yeah, feminist groups used Medusa. They wanted to like kind of subvert it and make it like something for female power, like a symbol for
Ah,
female power. But I think her being like this temptress kind of dangerous female femme fatale
yeah.
persona is just so rooted in our culture. Like I
Mm.
I was like, I think it's kind of hard to make her this feminist symbol for female power. Um, I don't
It's
know.
like trying to subvert the negative connotations of it, but I feel like that's very hard to do with uh a character that's been
That's like
established for
everyone knows
history.
her as an evil thing, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it can work. It's just it
yeah,
would just take a lot to establish it as what it is, type of
yeah.
thing. Like,
So, what do you think in your research? Um,
mhm,
do you think what was the positive outcomes of the stereotypes? Because obviously stereotypes are always looked at as negative, but
mhm.
like, what do you think could be positive from those and
People
like could be
positive.
developed?
Um, I think the most positive thing that came out of all of them, because it was modern, contemporary, sorry, I didn't use the word modern, contemporary film and television
Yeah,
shows. Um, I mostly they touched on archaic stereotypes, but like manipulated them in their
yeah,
own way. So it's like, okay, black women may possess some of these attributes. More times it's because it's perpetuated throughout history that why we act this way, why we're forced to act this way. But we're also ourselves, and not everybody is the same. So it's like
hmm,
Chewing and Insecure. Issa is so different to who Tracy is, but
hmm,
they both establish that they both obtain the awkward black girl trope, but they're very much individual people. Like there's no point blank copy of who they are. They
yeah,
have like similar traits, but they're their own individual. Um, with Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder, they're both written and produced by the same woman.
hmm.
So it's funny because Scandal's kind of like the
Isn't that
prototype. Shonda
Shonda?
Rhimes.
Yeah, she also did Bridgerton.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, go on.
But it's funny because it's like Scandal's like the prototype of like black protagonist in
Yeah,
drama. Like uh, Olivia Pope, the protagonist of Scandal. She's very I don't know. She tries to like evade her mental health issues. So it's like all her traumatic events, she just sips wine and eats popcorn at the end of the day. She kind of just doesn't like reflect on anything bad that happened to her. Cause she's non-stoppable and she kind of my basic they all aid into like the mammy trope of like they want to protect others and help others all the time,
Yeah.
especially like the white people around them. It's like they have their white children that they have to look after,
Yeah.
even at the consequence of their own feelings or actions. But with
Yeah.
How to Get Away with Murder, I feel like she revised that character a little bit. Like you see Annalise be more affected by her mental health with her experiences, and
I
it
think
shows.
Annalise is a great black character on screen. Like I
Yeah,
think she has so many layers, and I don't think you
yeah.
see that a lot with other black women on
No,
television.
she's so
So
multidimensional because
yeah,
as much as she is the strong black woman, she also suffers from alcoholism. She
yeah,
was raped. Like you can see her trauma play
yeah,
out. You can see her character develop. Like you see her going from wearing straight wigs and bland makeup to like
yeah,
conform to white beauty standards to then like saying fuck it, I'm gonna wear my hair natural. I'm gonna
yeah.
look as much as I want. Like I was even saying by her end, blah blah, her end scene, she doesn't
Mm.
really wear red or bright lipstick. Because I spoke about minstrel shows a lot, because a lot of stereotypes derive from minstrel shows
Mhm.
and how like that white people would put like overdrawn red lips to represent
Yeah,
black people. And it was funny that they made her wear red lipstick specifically in the end scene
yeah,
where she was representing herself. I feel like she was just reclaiming that like you perceive me in this archaic minstrel way, but
yeah.
I'm not that. So
You know
it
what's
was,
also nice? It's that she's actually dark skinned because
yeah.
in film and television, like no hate to Zendaya, she's great, but like it's always her or Amanda.
Amanda's Sills?
Yeah, like and these are great actresses, like like really, like I love them, but they're
Oh,
light
okay.
skinned or mixed race, like
They're both mixed race.
yeah. So it's like I think it was great to see Viola Davis who is actually dark skinned,
Yeah.
and like yeah.
I funny enough, I only use dark-skinned women
Oh,
as
that's
my
great.
examples. Apart
Yeah,
from Kerry Washington in Scandal, she's not. She's dark-skinned in the view of dark-skinned women, like in the world of black women,
yeah,
and how the world perceives black women. She would
yeah,
be classed as dark-skinned, but she's not that like
yeah,
dark in her pigment. But it's great because Viola Davis, she's dark-skinned and she's like older. She's more
yeah,
mature, and she
yeah,
was saying how she's never had a woman who looked like her be on TV ever. And
yeah.
it's like she didn't know if she could be sexy. She didn't know if she could do like those sexy and
Yeah, How to
sexy
Get
bits.
Away with Murder actually did a great job with that. Now that I think about it, I never thought about it that
Yeah,
much. Yeah,
it's great. I feel like yeah, no, I just think that overall like this whole dissertation was just to say like the as much as black women can play into archaic stereotypes because of history and the experiences that they have, it's important to have self-identification and self-discovery. And like with Tyler Perry, he tries to make the woman, the protagonist Helen, go through
yeah,
her own self-discovery journey. Like
yeah,
she has to be herself outside of her marriage, but he like reduces her into just relationships. But I think it's because it's a romance and because it's from his male perspective.
yeah,
But like with the women writers and producers, they then focus on self-discovery and self-identification that ejects like all negativity, even if it can
Conclusion:
even
more
if it has
women.
negative
Oh,
connotations.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, finish your sentence. Sorry.
No, so even if it has negative connotations, it's still overall a positive thing to be identified as whoever you want to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Conclusion is more women of every color on screen, more older women, more every age, every skin type, every body type.
Body type, yeah.
On screen and behind the scenes, and especially in higher positions.
Yeah.
That's my conclusion.
I feel like men should just stop writing women's perspectives, please. Thank you. Like, I'm so sorry. They just need to stop. And like, in
If you
things
don't
like
have the
Percy
best
Jackson,
interests at heart, just please.
just don't do it. And things like Percy Jackson, it's so unnecessary. You don't need to have these women behaving that way. It's so unnecessary.
Why can't you just do what the books did and like leave it at that? Why do you think you need to make it more
Exactly.
sexy just because you're a Hollywood production?
Exactly. Just leave it alone. Just focus on Percy being sexy. And he wasn't even sexy. Oh my days, he wasn't even
Because he was
sexy.
12 in the books. Why didn't we do a Harry Potter thing where we start with actors that are 12 and then,
I
why did we
know.
start at 16 when there was 5 books to get through?
But he wasn't even cute. They didn't even get the
No,
best.
I did have a big crush on him.
Did you? Oh, Julie,
Yeah.
no. He wasn't cute.
And like so many people had problems with the first movie. Everyone was hating on them because they were like, what the fuck is this? You changed the story, you changed the characters, you changed like you make everything worse.
Yeah.
And then loads of people were saying, oh, his friend Annabeth is supposed to be blonde and the actress was brown. So what did brunette?
Yeah.
And what did they change for the second movie? They made her blonde, and I was like, wow. You didn't save the franchise with Bleach. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's just
that was the least of the problems. Her hair color.
literally out of all the things you could have focused on, you changed that. Yeah, no, men just need to stop, man. Sorry, not all men, just men in high positions. You need to just stop doing things. But yeah, that's our conclusion. That's our dissertation.
We stand Shonda. I don't forgot her last name.
Shonda Rhimes.
We stand her. We stand Greta Gerwig.
Is that her name?
Hmm?
Is that her name?
That's the female that did Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And Little Women. Like, she's the only famous female director that people actually know. So.
Oh, and shout out to Issa Rae and Michaela Cole. Keep doing your thing. And whoever hasn't read The Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl, read it. Is hilarious.
And if you want to look into Percy Jackson, just read the books, don't watch the movies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you for listening.